Hello, my lovelies, beautifuls, amazings, and wonderfuls. Yep, you know who you are. Thank you for being a part of my community. I am Maggie, and what we are doing is we are doing a slow crawl through Excuses Be Gone by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And this book is to help us change lifelong self defeating thinking habits. So, hit like and subscribe now and leave your positive comments. I look forward to hearing them. So we are currently in part one, identifying and removing habitual thinking. I love the starting quote says, don't believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you think. Okay, don't believe everything you think. And we are in chapter one, yes, you can change old habits. So we have been looking at some medical research. We are going to keep going on. So this next, title is Your Lingering Early Programming. All right, it's very exciting. All right, here we go. In addition to our genetic makeup, the other big excuse that most of us use to justify unhappiness, poor health, and lack of success is the family and cultural conditioning we've been programmed with. So family and cultural conditioning we've been programmed with. To that end, there is a fascinating area of inquiry known as memetics, which deals with the mind and it's analogous to the relationship of genetics to the body. Okay, so memetics deals with the mind and is an analogistic to the relationship of genetics to the body. So memetics to the mind as relationship to genetics to the body. Okay, so as the basic unit of genetics is the gene, the basic unit of memetics is the mean. Okay, let's see. Rhymes with team. Unlike, I love a team that works together. I just love that. Anyway, unlike an atom or an electron, the meme has no physical properties. According to Richard Brody in his work, Virus of the Mind, it's a thought, belief, or attitude in your mind that can spread to and from other people's minds. Okay, so let's hear that again. Richard Brody says in his work, Virus of the Mind, it is a thought, belief, attitude in your mind that can spread to and from other people's minds. So are you seeing the connection between that and all the news and things being put out? It's a very easy way to infect the mind or uplift the mind. Whatever books you're reading, whatever music you're listening to, it puts thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes into our minds, okay? And it can spread quickly. Richard Dawkins, the Oxford biologist who coined the word meme, describes the process in his book, The Selfish Gene. My understanding is that the mimics originates from the word mimic, meaning to observe and copy behavior. This behavior is repeated and passed on to others, and on the mimicking process goes. So, there's the mirror neurons in the brain, and what they see, they do, and neurons that fire together wire together. I almost want to tell you a story. There's this story about a little girl watching her mom cook a dinner. And the mom gets this nice big ham, and she takes the ham and she cuts she cuts off a third of it, puts it in a separate pan, and then puts the 2/3 in a pan. And the little girl looks at her mom and she says, "Mommy, why do you cut the ham and why do you put this much in here and that much in there?" And the mom says, I don't know. My mom does that. I'll ask my mom. So the little girl's okay. So then, Grandma, Mom, is like, "Hey, Mom, we're curious. Hey, Grandma, we're curious. Why, all my life I've watched you cut the ham, put 2/3 in a pan and 1/3 in another pan, and then you cook it. What's up with this?" And the grandma says, "Well, I don't know. That's the way my mom did it. So this family was highly favored. So they had, you know, four generations, right? The the original asker, the great granddaughter, the mom, the great grandma, the grandma, and then the great grandma. So four generations. Oops, got that a little goofy, but you get the thing. They went to the great grandma and said, "Hey, great grandma, what's up with the deal? Like, why do we like? What is the purpose? Why do we cut the ham 2/3, put another third in a pan, and cook it?" And she looks at them and says, "Oh, because I didn't have a pan big enough. Like I couldn't afford a pan that could hold the whole ham." No, they all laughed and giggled and they thought, whoa, that's why we do that? We thought all this time, was part of our secret cooking, sauce. But then they learned, wow, okay, one generation couldn't afford a large enough pan for the ham. And then the other people observed it and then did it, the other daughter and the other daughter and the other daughter. And it took this cute little girl asking, hey, why do we do this? For them to actually figure out it was because they couldn't afford a pan that was large enough. Now they could, but they were still doing the same thing. This is that type of concept. This that he's saying we mimic what we see, and so on and so on. So if there's anything going on in your family generationally that you want to ask about, like, hey, why do we cook this way, whatever, it could be a fun experiment. Okay, so this behavior is repeated and passed on to others, and on the mimicking process goes. The key point is this. Transferring an idea, attitude, or belief to others is done mentally. Transferring an idea, attitude, or belief to others is done mentally. So, we won't find memes by turning up the magnification on any microscope. They pass from mind to mind via hundreds of thousands of imitations. So by the age of 6 or 7, we've all been programmed with an endless inventory of memes that act very much like a virus. And they aren't necessarily good or bad. What we talk about spectrums, right, guys? So you kind of know where you're at. Some are bad, some are good. They simply spread easily throughout the population. Once a meme is in your mind, it can and will subtly influence your behavior. So again, that's why I'm saying watch what you're reading, watch what you're listening to, watch what your, eye gates, ear gates, mouth gate, mind gate, heart gate. Watch, if you're having questions about yourself, take a deeper look. Okay, once a meme is in your mind, it can and will subtly influence your behavior. This is one of the ways you acquire a huge category of excuses that keep you in a rut. For example, my memes made me do it. I can't help it. These ideas, beliefs, attitudes have been passed on to me from one mind to another for generations, and there's nothing I can do about the way I think. These memes have been the building blocks of my mind and can't deprogram themselves from these viruses of the mind and just keep replicating and spreading. These ideas, memes, are so much a part of me that it's impossible to disinfect myself from the results of all these mind viruses. Every excuse you read about in this book is in reality a meme that was once planted in your mind. So hear this, because it's actually kind of painful speaking these words, because they're not true about you, and I know. But if you do have these types of programs, every excuse that you read in this book in reality is a meme that was once planted in your mind. So this book, as we get to going, guys, we're going to be uprooting them, we're going to be challenging them, and we're going to be replacing them with memes that serve you. So Richard Brody uses the word virus to describe what happens in the mind through mimicking and imitating. The core purpose of a virus is to make as many copies of itself as possible by penetrating wherever an opening occurs, and spreading itself to as many hosts as possible. Similarly, you're a host for countless memes. They're the entrenched thoughts and behavior characteristics of your personality. You spend years repeating and replicating ideas that were traveling from one mind to another, spreading these ideas and beliefs to many others. So, like I said, depending on where you are in the spectrum, you could have a lot of work to do, but if you do the work will work you and it'll work for you. It will uplift. You will hit the intersection and your life will upgrade. So, never ever give up. So, memes die hard because they become who you think you are. Shedding them is like trying to discard one of your vital organs, and it taps into your life force. So, why does it feel like you're losing a vital organ? Because you think it's you. You think XYZ, this negative thought, this you have possessed it. And so then when you start to try to discard it or change it, your body, it literally can feel like a part of you is dying, because essentially it is, because you are dropping the excuse or the negative thing to be empowered by the positive and the greater thing. So many memes, in fact, were firmly implanted by your parents during your early family history, and it'll come as no surprise that they were easily transferred to you from your parents or grandparents. Since ideas get fixed in your mind by spreading from other minds, they become your reality and often your entire life. So we love our parents, we love our grandparents. Everybody's doing the overall the best they can do. In certain select situations that might be different, but we're not here to like backlash and like judge, and because most times a lot of people are doing the best that they can with what they have going on. So we want to, if we have issues, we want to forgive and move forward. Release yourself, release them. Personally, I find it fascinating that there are invisible little units that I allow to be implanted in my mind, which continue to impact how I think and behave today. Moreover, I've acted on these mind viruses and have passed them on to my children unwittingly. I become a carrier. So you see, like I myself have passed these on to my children and have unwillingly become a carrier. And I ask for mercy. I ask for forgiveness, because in the great programs I passed on, awesome. But in the areas where the meme was not positive, the message wasn't, we all need to like take responsibility and look at what went on, and also have mercy, grace, and forgiveness for each ourselves and each other. So here are some examples that continue to crop up in my life. I grew up with a depression mentality. Even though I was born in 1940 at the tail end of the Great Depression, my parents and grandparents lived through hard economic times and shared a lot of their scarcity message with me. Don't spend recklessly, save for the future, because things will only get worse. There are shortages everywhere, food is in minimal supply, don't waste anything, eat everything on your plate, and you don't have enough money. These ideas were invisibly passed on to me as I grew up in the Midwest in the 1940s. I mimicked and imitated these ideas and allowed myself to become an instrument of these mind viruses. They grew in me and I spread them wherever I went until they became fully ensconced in my mind and many of my actions. So he's talking about like a type of hardening. And our thoughts they have a frequency, they have a form. When every thought you think goes out into the universe. If you could, just like you can't see a fart, but you can smell it, it's been dealt. He who smelt it, dealt it. Anyway, the thought is the same thing. Let your thoughts be fragrant. Although I'm now in my 60s, these memes are very much alive today and are still attempting to replicate and spread. To some extent, they serve a purpose, although they occasionally work overtime. Because there's nothing wrong with saving. There's nothing wrong with eating everything on your plate. But when it becomes a fully gripping idea and there's no room for prosperity or other thoughts, there's a real life where the rubber meets the road and you do have to cut back on costs. So you can't overspend. You need to eat everything on your plate. But at the same time, there needs to also be room for prosperity, abundance, health, whatever it is. If you're chokehold in that stronghold, you're not going to see the positive effects of healing, abundance, and these things come forward. So, my world isn't endangered by poverty, for instance, but I'm still a financially cautious person who likes to save rather than dispose of items retaining usefulness. I respect those attitudes, and they no doubt originate in my childhood by being programmed into my habitual subconscious. See, he doesn't like to waste anything because he knows somebody somewhere can use that, where a lot of people will just throw things in the trash. Guys, take it to the Salvation Army. Take it to the shelter near you. Take it to the abuse shelter. Like, somebody out there needs your stuff. Okay. I respect those attitudes, and they no doubt originated in my childhood by being programmed into my habitual subconscious, but I do really need to retrieve used up toothpaste tubes discarded by my children in waste paper buckets? So this is where he draws a line, and many of all of us, I think, would do that. And strenuously squeeze out another 2 weeks worth of product. When I've earned enough to buy the toothpaste factory, so you're going to have different people on the spectrum. Some people, in my family, we would squeeze out that 2 weeks, but everyone's different. So you have to do what you know is right, but always keep making room for the higher prosperity. So here's another mind virus I noticed lately. I must have imitated sulking when I didn't get my way as the youngest of 3 boys, or as a child in a series of foster homes, because I remembered my adult form of sulking, pouting, and even yelling when I was in my 30s and 40s. Recently, I was alone in my office, feeling frustrated because I couldn't locate something I needed. As my frustration mounted, I became increasingly irrational. I raised my voice, loudly protested although there was no one else there, and used profanity and stomped through the house until I was distraught and had given myself an upset stomach. This incident lasted 1 or 2 minutes, and then finally calmed down and found the book I thought was the culprit of my private dilemma. So I think any of us, if we're honest, we can associate to this. Being frustrated, being irrational, raising our voice, yelling, maybe even profanity, whatever it is. The energy, has to rise, and then it emits itself, and then, through time, calm comes again. But we want to reduce having those excess potentials. Okay, so why am I admitting to this silly scene, given my desire to be seen as a rational spiritual teacher? Because we're all human, guys. Nobody's above these things. Because it illustrates a point I'm making in this opening chapter. As an embryo, an infant, and a young boy, I must have seen this kind of behavior and mimicked it. The meme infected me, replicating and spreading from a relative or friend mind to mine. And now, some 60 years later, I could have a built-in excuse to behaving irrationally enough to feel embarrassed by my infantile behavior and for making myself sick. The excuse is right there for me to use. I've always overreacted to frustration. It's just part of me. I don't have any control over stomping around and blaming who knows what, using mild profanity and being immobilized because I can't tolerate my frustration. The possibilities are inexhaustible for excusing this behavior. But the question I must ask myself is, do I really want to hold on to these habitual behaviors that are ultimately capable of making me sick? So the question to us is, do we really want to hold on to these habitual behaviors that are ultimately capable of making us sick? And the answer is a resounding no. Aole, no. The other thing I want to say is, in these processes, please be gentle to yourself and others. Don't ever use your spiritual tools or your knowledge to hurt others or yourself. This is not a tools that you can turn around now and say, well, look at you. You didn't do this, and look at you this, and you've fallen short of the glory of God, or whatever the comment is. You just need to like observe and see what you're doing, and you want to kind of track. He kind of talks back to the root, find out where this behavior comes, and what is this behavior trying to serve. Like, is it trying to protect you? Is it that you know no other way than to emit your frustration? What is it? Is it, like he said, was it mimicked? Is this the behavior you learned? And do you actually want to hang on to this? The answer is usually no. Sometimes there is a part of us, though, that does want to hang on to the behavior because in a twisted, kind of sick way, it makes us feel safe or comfortable because that's what we know. Those are all the questions that we need to look at. But what I want to really express, never use the tools to hurt yourself or others. Be very kind and patient with yourself as you are going through these processes, okay? Because, if you're not kind to you, no one else is going to be. And even if others aren't kind to you, you need to be kind to yourself. But you also need to be kind to others. If you have greater awareness and you're awake more, with your power comes responsibility. So be kind. Okay, and with that, you're going to hit like and subscribe and leave your positive comments. Very grateful to get this time with you, and I hope you're having a great day. And excuses, be gone. All right, you know what comes next. Peace in, peace out.